All right, what's up? My name's Alao. Um, Originally from Detroit, but I've been living in DC probably for the past almost 15 years. Uh, been in music off and on throughout my life. This music kind of gives a soundtrack, I feel, of life sometimes. And for me, it's been more like a therapeutic thing that I use, almost like therapy. But I've only really ever created one album. It was called Visions of a Better Life. It was the name was inspired by this dude that I used to go to school with. That he, kind of went down the wrong path. He kind of woke up in the hospital, and that was the first thing that kind of came to his mind. And so when we had that conversation, it kind of stuck with me because I feel like a lot of times I try to think I know what I want to fulfill purpose or make me happy or whatever. But when you do kind of reach those goals, you find out that those things don't necessarily, like once you get there, top, or get to a goal, it doesn't fulfill you. So, at any rate, I'm making another album. This one is probably going to be more digital. It's called The Age of Reason. The name Age of Reason is inspired by one of the founding fathers, Thomas Paine. He wrote this declaration, not a declaration, but he wrote this article in a paper, and it was one of his, the two things I know about him, he wrote something where he said, these are the times that try men's souls. And he was talking about everything that was going on during the War of Independence. But I think The Age of Reason was actually a book that he wrote. And so it's more like an ode to him because he's one of the founding fathers that was kind of ahead of his time. And I mean, he's kind of like a not really well-known. People were saying he was quacky or whatever, but I think that he was just trying to rebel against like mental slavery. So, and given the times that we're in right now with fake news and reality TV, I feel that now is the time where people are starting to try to become awake, but there's so much mass confusion, so much propaganda that people are questioning what's real, what's fake. So I'm not sure what I'm trying to do with this project, but it's just something that I feel that I'm more doing it for me rather than anything. So, man, it's funny because like as far as collaborations, I've done very, very few. But I feel like the artists that I like, there's one dude, Odyssey. He's actually from the DC area. I like people who have more of a message that they're trying to put in their music. So as far as like, big names, I would say Kendrick, J. Cole, they're really what you classify as, I guess, conscious rappers. I guess on the B side, this cat from Toronto, his name is Shad. I've been following him for a while. I kind of draw inspiration from him too. So I would say Shad, Odyssey, Kendrick, J. Cole. Anybody who has more of like more message music, something that has a little more substance to it. I think the message in my music is just to like think. Just think about everything, because just in the short time, for me, I'm gonna probably take it back. For me, like before, today is 9/11, mind you, so that's when the real kind of partial awakening happened with me, because I started like trying to just research about religion, about government, about spiritual matters, and throughout that process, I got a lot of half-truths and false information. But for me, like, I never really questioned any of that stuff until 9/11. And then I look at, like, that date, and I almost feel like what I've learned through the years is like there's power in words, right? Words have a certain vibration to them, and so do numbers. And 9/11, that was the number for emergency 911, and then a lot of people don't know that on 9/11, 3 buildings fell instead of 2. It was building 7. It didn't get hit by anything, right? And so with me more thinking logical, I'm like, okay, why did that happen, right? And so that just kind of just perpetuated a whole list of things, and now we're here in 17 years later, and if you look at the kind of the state of the world right now, not just our country, is people are angry, people are confused, and people want answers. And so I know I can't provide all the answers, but I can at least give people questions to ask, just about life in general. Because there's a lot of things that are going on, not just in the political aspect, but also the scientific. There's been a lot of talk about like artificial intelligence and how if you look at any technology we've used in the past that was supposed to help us, the way they sell it, like for instance, nuclear technology, they were selling it as something that you could power your car forever and it's gonna be unlimited energy. But the first thing they do is blow up some shit. The first thing they do is make a bomb. So it gets weaponized. And the problem with something like AI is if it becomes, self-aware, it can view you as a threat to its existence and then kind of enslave you. And I don't know, humans, we've only been on this planet for such a small time. Even our planet has only been here for a small time, but even us on this planet, it's like if you were to take the amount of time that the planet's been around and put it in one day, we're like we're not even the last second. We're like a partial part of the last second. So if we do kind of survive and live on and kind of create things, I'm just hoping we don't kind of create something that leads to like our enslavement, essentially, like spiritual enslavement. For me, what really, I guess, got me into music was, well, at least hip hop anyway, was my older sister. I think the first album she bought me, I was maybe 12 or something. It was 12 or 13, I can't remember. But it was Tupac's Thug Life, actually. But with him, he was almost feel like he was trying to live his art, and he was just like kind of caught. If you look at a lot of his music, it was very spiritual, but then spirituality isn't necessarily always positive. Sometimes it's with him, I mean, he kind of wrote his own death essentially, which is sad because I feel like if he was here now, a lot of the people in the music game would not be where they're at. And even with politics, because he wanted to create his own political party. And if you look at what happened when Obama came into office, he did cozy up with Jay-Z a lot and used that energy of hip-hop to kind of further the cultural goals. But as far as like influences in music, it was more something that I sought out. I never really took any, I don't know how to play an instrument. I just started writing. I used to write, I think the first time I ever wrote something, I was probably like maybe 16. And then I really didn't get into hip hop until I went to college. Like really, really like into like trying to write and having a goal of actually trying to make some music. And actually it was after college that I actually put out my first little album, mixtape, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah. All right, I'm not gonna get too technical, but I'll just try to give like a background. So in 2008, there was the housing financial crisis where the government came in and did a big bailout. And so some guy named Satoshi Nakamoto, which is probably his alias, released this white paper and was detailing the idea of internet money or digital money, peer-to-peer transactions. And he actually, from what I've researched, the idea of this isn't new. It was actually kind of thought about in the 90s, and there was a lot of papers written on it. But what he did, he was able to solve this old problem called the Byzantine general problem, where you have information and you're trying to pass it to somebody else on the battlefield without making sure that it's not going to get intercepted or corrupted. And so his idea was to decentralize the ledger. And so you have different computers, nodes on a network that essentially have a same copy of the transactions and that are on the network. And so with Bitcoin was the first crypto, and since then there's been other evolutions of it that either they take the code and clone it, make some changes, or they create a whole new one like Ethereum, to where you're able to do actually programming on the blockchain. And so my whole idea with crypto conscious is I realized that humans kind of try to replicate things that happen in the natural world. And so when you think about, like, for instance, the galaxy, right? The galaxy. So you have different stars. They transmit light. That light kind of is information. It keeps us sustained in this reality. And there's a whole bunch of different ones within, there's like a whole bunch in the galaxy. Some say they might communicate with each other, some say they might not. But if you look at like the idea with Bitcoin, if you think of all those different nodes as like their own suns, and they're transmitting information within them, and then you have us that are the people that are using it, and so it's not necessarily aware of us. I know I'm getting a little deep with it, but it's not necessarily aware of us, but we are of it, and we keep it alive. But with crypto, the whole idea was to give people the power to be able to transact value with trust. Another thing about crypto is it was based off the idea of fiat money. And so I kind of feel that money doesn't necessarily exist. Well, kind of feel, I don't think it exists. I think it's more of an idea. And so it's a belief system. So if you believe that this dollar has value, then you use it in your daily life. And since we all come to consensus that this has value, that's what kind of controls the economy. With crypto, it, one, puts a cap on, well, not all times, but most of the time, there's an algorithm that shows how much of it is generated, how it comes into being. Whereas when you have with fiat dollars, it's based off the government and the Federal Reserve, and they can decide to flood the market with money, to limit the amount, to burn it, but you're still dependent on human intervention. And with crypto, it's the math that governs the network, and the people just kind of interact with it. And so my idea with crypto conscious is us trying to be conscious of this new technology that is kind of disrupting, and it's pretty radical, but we have to be careful that we don't use this technology to create the same thing that we're fighting against, which is centralization, you know. And if you look at what's happening in the world right now with Turkey, Venezuela, Argentina, they're all having currency crisis, because, I mean, currencies can be manipulated, so their value is dropping. I saw this one picture on Twitter of this kid shoveling out a whole bunch of money out of this truck and jumping in it. It was like a pile of money, and it was the equivalent of $10. So I feel that cryptocurrencies probably will, like, I think the government or the people that run these sovereign nations, you know, you can't beat them, join them. So they're going to try to get ahead of the game and make sure that they consolidate a lot of the different currencies, cryptocurrencies that are out there. I guess I kind of feel that there's a lot of negativity in the world right now, and I almost feel like it's by design. The quicker way to kind of make people hurry up and evolve, or to bring about a new change, is through total getting people to just not to have that. How can I explain it? Like to get people. The quickest way to bring about change is to bring about abruptly and disrupt what people think is true. And then, like, there's just so much going on right now with politics, with religion and money, that in my mind, if I look at, like I was saying before, ever since 9/11, you've had like the Catholic Church scandals, so people have been losing faith in religion. You have the election of Donald Trump, which showed that people have lost faith in their government, so they wanted an outsider. And you have cryptocurrency, where people have lost faith in the institutions that control the economy. And so with these three things, it's going to be interesting what's going to happen in the next like 5 to 10 years. There was one more point that I wanted to get on. It goes back to the AI stuff. So in 2020, there's going to be convergence a little bit, because there's this thing called Moore's Law. And so with processors, things have been getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but it's going to come to a point with, they use silicon for, our phones, our chips and everything. So it's going to come to a point to where the amount of transistors that you could put on a processor, you're going to reach the like physical limit of matter. And so in order to do the computations and ones and zeros, they're looking to go to use nanotechnology to do it. And that's where I feel like the genie might be coming out of the bottle. So I just hope that mankind will kind of be able to have enough restraint to not bring about its own demise. With a blank slate, here comes the burden of bringing home the dinner plate. I waited years to get my life on track, just to follow my dream of spitting these raps. With low-tech gear and high-def rhymes, made something from nothing that's one of a kind. I'm on my grind. Forget a dollar and a dime. I'm just trying to ride the wave without falling behind. It's so sublime. What you see is only part of the edifice. Oh, excuse me, I'm just following etiquette. Now it's time to teach, because we set the precedent. The message is for betterment. All else is irrelevant. Guess I'm hell-bent on making a stride. Staying alive to die is only part of the ride. The part that resides deep at the seat of my soul is taking control. I'm just here along for the stroll. Reaching my goals I hold, though it don't make sense. To my defense, the mint wastes the dollars it prints. Power is bent, the hours of tomorrow are spent. If knowledge is prince, wisdom is the king that invents. You see, our freedoms were meant to give us a choice. The voice of the people anoint our leaders. Though they bleed us and lie straight to our face, divide us by our race and hide because they're snakes. It's time to become awake and find that inner state that aligns with outer space. I'd rather face defeat than live a nightmare. In the land of the free, the brave are right here. Alao, Age of Reason. Out here just do my thizzle.